It is October 26th, 2018. It's a Friday. That's when you're listening to this. I hope you're having a good Friday. Not like the Easter one, but a great one, a fun one, an enjoyable one. We're going to talk today about Crown Jewel. As of this recording, we just had some breaking news come out, literally about 10 minutes ago. So you'll get my thoughts on that. I'll talk a little bit about Raw and Smackdown. And then in the comic book world, I read a comic from Wal-Mart for $5 that was all about Halloween. So stick around, because this is Not Life with Adam S. Messinger.
If you're reading Saga or crying from the Muir, he'll deliver a sunset flip, so hold secure. He's got comic books and wrestling all night. This is Not Life with Adam Messinger. Adam S. Messinger.
Welcome to episode 41 of This Is Not Life with Adam S. Messinger. I am indeed, as always, for the last 31 years, am Adam S. Messinger. At Walmart, they're selling $5 comics. They're 100 pages. It's all DC stuff. The cool thing about this is they have 4 ongoing titles, and each one has an ongoing serialized story. It's brand new, but it's packed with a bunch of reprints that are also serialized from older series, and they're putting in like the best of the best stuff for the most part. Justice League's got Jim Lee and Jeff Johns' opening story arc. The Batman one has Batman Hush. The Superman one, you know what, I can't remember what the Superman one has, but there's some good stuff in there. And this has done pretty successful business for them. In fact, it's done so well that they decided to put out a special Halloween one-shot. Now, this one-shot has 7 stories in it, all of them by various creative teams. And I decided, since we got Halloween coming up pretty soon, that maybe this might be something that would get you in the mood for the scares and the horrors and the creepy things. The brand new story, the hook to buy the book, is Swamp Thing by Brian Azzarello and Greg Capullo. I'm going to be breaking down every story bit by bit, and I'm going to be analyzing how each one is, if I like it, if I don't, what works, what doesn't. And then at the end, I'll tell you if it's something you should spend your $5 on or not. So the first story is Swamp Thing by Brian Azzarello and Greg Capullo. And the story wasn't very good to me. I like both of those guys very much, but this one was a miss, in my opinion. The story is about a young girl telling about her time meeting Swamp Thing, and she was looking for a gateway to the other side, which I assume is like the afterlife. And it turns out that she couldn't find it. She just found Swamp Thing. And then she's telling it to these little kids, and it turns out they're not little kids. They're demons who have kidnapped little kids. And then Swamp Thing comes out and kills the demons. There's a lot of illogical stuff here as you just kind of jump through. Why did the girl's eye get taken out by Swamp Thing? Why is she just talking to these random kids? Why did Swamp Thing come back after she found out they were demons to save her? I mean, it didn't float my boat at all. Not only that, I felt like Greg Capullo drew Swamp Thing too human-like and not enough swampy-like. If you look at a lot of the Steve Bissett, John Toddleben, Rick Veitch stuff, even if you look at Yannick Paquette's all the stuff from Alan Moore and the stuff from the more recent Scott Snyder run, there's a lot more creature than human. I like it personally. Maybe it's just a preference for me. I like it when he's a lot more creature and a lot more monster-ish than a swamp guy in human form. So that was kind of my big gripe with that. Outside of that, Capullo does a great job with the kids and the demons and all that. There's a part where Swamp Thing rips apart an alligator, and that's pretty cool looking. So the first story in it was kind of a miss for me. The second story is a team-up of Blue Devil and Enchantress by Dan DiDio and Ian Churchill. And for all these, I'm just listing the artist and the penciler. I know there's a lot more creativity that goes into it, but sorry guys, I've don't got enough time for all of it. But to be fair, the art and all of it looks really good, and the creative teams have done good, and they did a great job of picking out all the stories for this, as far as making it a compilation, at least visually. So we have Blue Devil and Enchantress by Dan DiDio and Ian Churchill. This story features, it's on Halloween, it features Blue Devil mentioning that he kissed a girl once to Enchantress, talking about his first kiss, as he's handing out Halloween candy. And it turns out that the equivalent of Charlie Brown and Pigpen, the adult equivalents of them, are summoning the Great Pumpkin, although they give him a different name. And then the Great Pumpkin comes after fucking Blue Devil, and Blue Devil has to fight it off. And it turns out that they're mad that Blue Devil kissed the woman they liked a long time ago. Dan DiDio needs to stop writing comics. That's what that comes down to. And Ian Churchill did a great job, and he made this look better than it had any right to be. The next story is a Zatanna story by Paul Dini and Dustin Nguyen. It featured Zatanna at a birthday party. No, I take that back. It featured Zatanna at a children's hospital on Halloween performing a show when a kid is carted in after having some crazy acid trip after eating some laced Halloween candy. And so she goes and gets revenge on the guys that did that. The next story features Jonathan Crane, the Scarecrow, and it's by Mikey Way and Morissette. Both of those people I'm not familiar with. So I don't know if Mikey Way's Gerard Way's brother or relative or what the hell, how they got in this. But it's a decent story. It's a retelling of the Headless Horseman with Batman and Scarecrow, and turns out that the whole thing is an illusion after Scarecrow doused himself with his own fear toxin. And it was rather forgettable. Now, the next story is actually probably my favorite. It's a Demon Aquaman team-up. They go underwater, and once a year, they have to go in and stop this Cthulhu-like creature from bringing back the dead. And by I mean the dead, I mean everybody who's ever died at sea. And so he uses the dead souls and the dead corpses as his army. And so they have to go in and defeat them and close the portal again. This was fantastic. The art was by Jesus Saez. It was a really great story, seeing how the Demon and Aquaman worked together. And you could tell, even though that it's such an odd combo, they had this natural chemistry. They were on the same page, and it was very believable. And you see it all through the eyes of this bystander who had crashed a ship. And he figured out where stuff was, and so they bring him along under the water. They get the demon gives him gills, and we get a rhyming demon, which we haven't seen a lot of recently, and I fucking love it when they have the demon as a rhyming demon. This story, personally, I felt was like worth the price of admission. The other stories are meh to entertaining. Like the Zatanna story, I thought was decent. And this one, for me, was the, yeah, you gotta buy this story. The next story is a Batman story that features a character called the Reaper. It's an old school Bronze Age Batman story by Denny O'Neil with art by Neil Adams and Dick Giordano. It was really weird because it was written back in the 70s and it reads like it was written back in the 70s and it doesn't hold up very well. Batman's dialogue is a lot more stock adult almost. He sounds like a parent, an overbearing parent in a lot of ways. Not the master detective. He reacts a lot. He's very reactionary in this. And then there's a guy wandering around for no reason trying to talk about floats, and it felt like a joke that didn't land. But the whole thing looked gorgeous. The art in it was really, really good. And there's a fun scene where Batman's at a Halloween party, and you have people dressed up as Thor and Spider-Man, and you get to see that, and I enjoyed that. The reveal of who the Reaper is and why he's killing people, I felt like that was kind of weak. They were trying to do a twist ending, and the twist, I feel like, was more of a nudge. This one, though, I would read it just for the art, because the art was really, really good. And the last story, the seventh story, ends it like we began it, with Swamp Thing, except this is the original appearance of Swamp Thing by Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson, the co-creators of Swamp Thing. This story was good. It was interesting to see how it played out, because it just starts as a generic story about a man who killed the love of his life's husband and then stepped in and, you know, tried to put the moves on and then married her. And it turns out that Swamp Thing is the not-so-murdered husband. And so it was a fun read. It's not very long. So when I'm looking at it, and we're breaking down all the stories, I have the Batman Reaper story, the Batman the Brave and the Bold story, and the Zatanna story, all worth reading. And then you got, and I would say also the Wayne Wrightson one is not for the entertainment, but more for the educational history of Swamp Thing. And then I'd say the Crane story and the Blue Devil story and the opening Swamp Thing story, you can pass on. And considering that these are all reprints except for the opening story, and that the Demon Aquaman story is a reprint from the Brave and the Bold series that came out about 7 or 8 years ago. It's by J. Michael Straczynski from his run on that book, and that was, I think, a $3 comic when it came out. Well, just for $2 more, you're getting all this extra content. So I'd say slap down your $5 It's not a bad way to spend, 45 minutes to flip through and read this thing. It's at all your local Walmarts. It's not available digitally. If it's sold out at Walmart, your next best choice is eBay. I would pay $5 for it. I don't think I would pay any more. When you start getting into, $7, $8 plus shipping and all that, nah. But if you find it at Walmart, it is worth picking up. Stick around. I'm going to get into some wrestling stuff. Is there a whole world of people out there that need to hear about what you do? Are there unsuspecting customers in the wings that listen to this, that need your touch in their ears, so that way you guys can connect up and help each other? Well, here at This Is Not Life with Adam S. Messinger, we would like to give you that opportunity to talk to them. So, email me at, surprisingly enough, adamsmessinger@gmail.com if you would like to advertise. in this very segment. I hope to hear from you. And that was a lovely message. We're back with wrestling. So it's just come out that WWE has decided they're going forward with Crown Jewel. I'm going to read it for you. Their official statement is WWE has operated in the Middle East for nearly 20 years and has developed a sizable and dedicated fan base. Considering the heinous crime committed at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, the company faced a very difficult decision as it relates to the event scheduled for November 2nd in Riyadh. Similar to the other U.S.-based companies who plan to continue operations in Saudi Arabia, the company has decided to uphold its contractual obligation to the General Sports Authority and stage the event. Full year 2018 guidance is predicated on the staging of the Riyadh event as scheduled. I hope they enjoy that Saudi money because that's going to cost them U.S. money, in my opinion. It's going to take them some time to really kick back from this. Honestly, this is probably the last you're going to hear me talk about WWE for a while. I'm kind of done with them, with this going on. I know last time I was on the fence, but now that everything has come out, that they indeed did kill Jamal Khashoggi, and the fact that they refuse to accept that the Saudi Arabian government is responsible for this. They say considering the heinous crime committed, but they don't say committed by the Saudi Arabian government at the consulate. No, that's not what they do. I just feel like this is an awful decision. Supposedly John Cena's not going, and supposedly Daniel Bryan's not going. I really hope those gentlemen stick to it and consider not going. I'm really bummed about this. I was hoping they would make the right decision. I'm not surprised. I'm not too surprised at all, just because of how they've been in the past. They've not had a great moral track record. But the thing is, they keep talking about pushing forward and change and cultural change and all that bullshit. And this just reinforces that it's all hollow. That when it comes down to money, that's what it fucking, it's what it comes down to. And I get the impression that if fucking Al-Qaeda had funded this and given them the money and the venue, they would still be like, all right, let's go. Or Vince McMahon at least would. I would love to see the talent step up and be like, nah, we're not doing this. Or the production crew. If I were part of production, I'd be like, yeah, I'm not going. You can fucking fire me. But I mean, there's kids with families, there's kids with families. No, there's staff members with families. There's, office people, and the wrestlers have families. So I mean, those with families, I can't really hate on. But there's plenty of single dudes that are going to be in this that it's like, nah, you don't have to go to this. You can tell it fuck off. I'm going to move on from this. I'm bummed. But I'll go on and let's talk about I'm going to go on and talk about another thing I didn't like. And then I'll skip to something I did like so we can end on a happier note. I'm going to do SmackDown and Raw in reverse. Normally I do Raw and then SmackDown, but I'm actually going to start with SmackDown this time. SmackDown in and of itself was pretty underwhelming. The show started out with Kofi versus Big Show. It turns into a schmoz. They set up a tag team event for Crown Jewel. Big Show's a heel again, blah, 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 I don't care. Then you had the Usos versus Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles as a rematch. I liked it. I thought it was good. Jimmy Uso, or Jay Uso, whichever Uso, did the pin. Did a nice little, when they were doing the splash, they did a nice little homage to Roman Reigns with cocking his fist in the air. I thought that was pretty cool. The match was decent. You had Daniel Bryan get Pele kicked in the head on quote-unquote accident, And Daniel Bryan saying he doesn't buy it. I thought that was, I don't know. I'd like to see, I don't know. I like both of these guys. I don't want to see the good guys fight. I know somebody's got to be the bad guy, but I don't want either to be the bad guy. I like them both. Then you had a way too long segment with Becky Lynch and Charlotte at the NXT training facility. And good God, man. This segment was so long. It starts off, the lights are dimmed. You got a bunch of NXT people standing around. Charlotte's in front of a ring. And she's like, thank you for coming here on your day off. And she just starts talking about bullshit, about how great it is to be in the main roster and that kind of stuff. And then Becky Lynch comes in after what feels like 15 minutes of this and is like, you worry about one person, you worry about yourself, and then some other thing about look at everybody else and, you got to worry about you, not them. And then she attacks Charlotte. They have a brawl. This segment was a great idea, awful execution. All they needed, and they've shown it before, is footage of people talking to the NXT trainees. And it's pretty simple. So you have that, and then you have Charlotte chilling out next to a ring, talking to all of them. And then you have from out of nowhere fucking Becky Lynch coming through the side. Maybe she's just like, hey, what's up, Charlotte? And then fucking tackles her or some shit like that. And then a brawl and they break it up. It should be no more than a minute and a half. But this was a good 5 to 7 minutes, it felt like. The next thing they did was they had Rusev versus Aiden English as a blow-off to their whole one night in Milwaukee thing. Rusev destroyed Aiden English in a grand total of a 1-minute match. Everyone is now scared of Aiden English after he has been thoroughly beaten and had his character squashed by Rusev. Aiden English is now a huge threat. We are all scared of him. This has done wonders for his career. He will be headlining WrestleMania next year. And then you had Miz TV with Rey Mysterio. They argue, as and trade jabs back and forth. I dug it. It turned into a match. The match was the best match on the show. But that's not saying a whole lot. Rey won with the 619. It was good. Then you had a tag team match of Asuka and Naomi versus Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville, but it never fucking gets off the ground. It's a terrible thing. Just one person after another comes out, and it's all to promote this battle royal, and it's just a schmoz. And like literally, I was sitting here typing notes, and I look up at the TV, and I'm listening, and I see what's going on, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to play solitaire. And so I did until the next segment. The next segment, you had Shane McMahon come out and talk about, we're going to do the best in the world, and who do you think's going to be the best in the world? And then the audience starts chanting CM Punk. And he's like, I don't think he's in the tournament. And I don't see how they tried to say best in the world without people being like CM Punk. That's dumb. He is the best in the world. That's how he's known. That's how he will always be known. So, not a smart move, WWE. The main event was Randy Orton versus Jeff Hardy. If you've seen one Orton and Hardy match in the last few weeks, you've seen them all. This one wasn't a whole lot better. Orton hit the RKO for the win. I didn't believe that was the main event. Whenever I got there, I was like, wow, this show didn't really get off the ground. Had a couple of okay moments, but other than that, it was extremely forgettable. If I didn't have my notes here in front of me, I'd be like, I fucking don't know. I could tell you probably one or two of those things. Getting to Raw was bittersweet. I thought it was a really well put together show. The show opened up with a real heartbreaker of Roman saying he has to vacate the Universal Championship because he has leukemia. That was that was as real as it gets. There was one guy, though, his reaction, they cut to where the announcer's booth used to be, and you see this guy just looking at the screen, and his face is so confused. Like, is this for real, or is this storyline? And I wish I could make a meme out of him, but he's reacting to somebody who is saying they have cancer, so I can't. But it was a really well done, outside of that, which made me laugh. It was a really, it was as good of a promo, I guess you can say, as you're going to get out of something like that. I've always been a fan of Roman Reigns as a wrestler. I feel like his character has been, WWE has set him up for failure as far as his character has gone and the legacy of that character. And I would love to see him come back when he comes back as Joe and get kind of a reset. I think that would be amazing. And that was the first time a crowd ever unanimously chanted for Roman Reigns, as it took cancer. And whenever he talked about having leukemia, the whole place fell silent. That was crazy. The only time I've seen that is like after The Undertaker lost at WrestleMania 30. So that happened. He goes and meets Dean and Seth, who are both torn up at the entrance ramp. Seth more visibly so. That was hard. I was with my girlfriend at the time, and we watched that segment, and she was like crying, and I was almost crying. It was hard. So they roll on with the show, and you had Finn Balor come out and have a match with Bobby Lashley. He rolls up Bobby Lashley in a fluke win. I'm so glad that they turned Bobby Lashley heel so that he could lose the next week. Then you had Ruby Riott and the Riott Squad versus Sasha Banks with Natty and Bayley. And Ruby Riott pinned Sasha. I could have swore when the match started it said this is a submission match. But I guess that's just me. I thought, oh, we're going to see a submission. So Sasha's definitely going to win. And so I was really surprised when she got pinned. They had a Undertaker and Kane promo from a boiler room. I just kind of rolled my eyes at it. DX did a really good promo about how just because they're old and what nostalgia means doesn't mean it's bad. They talked about how he referenced the new Halloween movie being number one, and it's, a 40-year-old franchise, and he talked about, also being part of NXT and seeing the next generation and giving this, one last go. I thought it was a really great promo on their part until it ended with Kane and Undertaker in a cemetery flashing tombstones with their names on it about 2 segments after Roman Reigns says he has leukemia. So that's not in bad taste or anything. It's not like they could have shelved that to, next week? The go-home show? Maybe? Paul Heyman comes out. He does a great promo talking about Roman Reigns and incorporating real life into the story of the Universal Championship. They've, I think, turned Braun Strowman face. He comes out, and I'm going to kick Brock's ass after Heyman's, talked about how Brock is going to be the champion everyone deserves, and he's going to even defend that championship and show how great he is in the octagon with it. So, yeah, and Braun Strowman comes out, and I'm going to kick his ass, and then when Roman gets back, even though we've had our differences, he's going to be the first in line to get a title shot. So I don't know if they've turned him or not. It could go either way, in my opinion. That was kind of a face thing to say, so I don't know. I would certainly hope not, because just him as a heel at this point is kind of what they set in a month and a half ago, and it's too soon to turn him, in my opinion. The fun part was watching Braun Strowman turn around to leave and eat a Claymore kick. I could watch Drew McIntyre Claymore kick him in the face all day. They had Elias come out and face Apollo Crews in a nothing match. Elias wins. Kurt Angle gave one of the worst recap promos I think I've heard on TV. It was awful. I mean, fucking terrible. It's like he's stiff and he's reading off a teleprompter. And he looks awful. He looks just super old. And he's recapping all the World Cup entrants and listing everybody's qualifications almost like it's a preamble that nobody needs. Why they aired that, they must have really been desperate for filler shit. Because that was terrible. They bring back Elias to play music, and then Baron Corbin comes out to talk about the Universal title situation, and Elias makes up some song about Baron Corbin sucking. And then Baron Corbin, you work for me, get off my stage. If it were up to me, I'd fire you right now. And so Elias comes back and then smashes the guitar over Baron Corbin. And then you have, after that, you had a contract signing with the Bellas and Ronda Rousey. It was pretty good. Ronda had to essentially say, I won't beat the shit out of you guys while we're signing this. And the Bellas just used that as an excuse to say all the horrible things they could. And it was good. It was a well-done segment. You had a four-way match that lasted 2 minutes between Nia Jax, Dana Brooke, Ember Moon, and Tamina. My God, it was... Why? I don't know why they did that. Why did they do that? It was a waste of time. Ember Moon hit the Eclipse on Tamina, who I'm so glad she came back last week so she could lose in this match. Then they did a whole breast cancer thing with Titus O'Neil. They keep saying breast cancer is unacceptable. Like, fucking, how dare... If you got breast cancer, that's unacceptable. How dare you do that? Like, people have a fucking choice in the matter. Like, a kid that kicks a dog, you go, oh, that's unacceptable. Like, no, kid, you can't be doing that shit. You don't tell that to fucking breast cancer. You're like, breast cancer, you're unacceptable. Get the fuck out of here. And that's like their slogan they're pushing so hard I can't take it seriously. Sure, like, tap it into remission. There you go. Anything like that. But it's unacceptable. Get more creative, guys. You had a backstage beatdown segment with Alicia Fox and Mickie James and Trish and Lita as a promo for Evolution, which is coming up this Sunday. And we've had 3 out of the 4 women's segments between the two shows have been garbage. 4 out of 5, yeah. Because you had 3 on this show, and the good one was the Bellas and Ronda thing. The main event was Ziggler and McIntyre versus Rollins and Ambrose for the tag titles. They talk about how they're dedicating this match to Roman. Rollins is like, believe that, as he's like leaving. And then you had them win in a pretty great match. There's a ref bump. Strowman comes out to chase out McIntyre as revenge for the Claymore kick from earlier. And this leaves Ziggler vulnerable in the ring. And then he's pinned by Seth Rollins. There's about 2 seconds of celebration. And then Dean turns heel. He pulls out he beats the fuck out of him, pulls up the mat and exposes the concrete, does the dirty deeds there. I mean, he just beats the fuck out of him. for a while too. And I'm not opposed to Ambrose turning heel. I've been looking forward to it. I thought this was actually done really well. The problem is they were doing it to exploit Roman having cancer, and they were trying to get the most amount of heat on Dean Ambrose, and it's completely tasteless, in my opinion. It's completely tasteless. I get the theory behind it. Honestly, I can't say that I wouldn't have done the same thing in their shoes, but I want to say that I would have let common sense and being like, oh, that's pretty fucking tasteless, take over, the whole conscience thing. But obviously, as of today's announcement, we know that's not their strong suit. So, the show overall for Raw on the Not Dave Meltzer scale, I'd give it a pair of comfy winter gloves that fit right around your hand and still allow you to maneuver things, and they don't feel like extensions that don't work. And I would say Smackdown is one of those headbands that don't do anything for anyone. It's just a headband that sits on your head. And it's just there. And it may look cool, it may not. That's what Smackdown was on the Not Dave Meltzer scale. I'm not going to lie. Next Friday's the 2nd. I will cover Raw and SmackDown. They're supposed to be doing Crown Jewel that day, on the day you listen to the next episode. I can't guarantee... You know what? No, I'll cover Raw and SmackDown because there's still time and there's still a chance that this could fall through. So, I'll cover at least Raw and SmackDown. After that, we'll see what's up in the wrestling segment. Determine the future of the wrestling segment. You know what? I'm calling it. We're done for today. Thank you for sticking around and listening to this. Just know that I love you deep in my heart. And that'll never change. But I gotta go. That's just how it is right now. I'd like to thank Kevin Lane for editing this. I'd like to implore you to go check out dandelionmassacre.com. They did our theme song, so if you like that theme song, I get more compliments on that than I do the actual podcast. So if you're into that, go download all their music. Great stuff. Dan Faughdner did our graphics. You can follow me all over social media at Adam S. Messinger, Instagram, Facebook. Twitter is where I'm at the most. But if it's a social media thing out there, at Adam S. Messinger, you'll probably find me. So, I will see you all